Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on our new webinar, which is going to be on improve your player lifetime value and cross sell to increase it further. I am Sumit. I will be your co host today for this webinar. Just to give a brief background on Bizacuity for attendees who are joining us for the first time, we are a BI and data analytics company which specializes in gaming, both iGaming and land based. We started our operation back in 2011. Our co founders already had an extensive experience of more than 40 plus years in iGaming, BI, and analytics, as they all worked in iGaming companies before starting Bizacuity. Before we begin, I would like to take this opportunity to inform our new attendees that this webinar is the last in our accelerator-based webinar series. So we started this series a couple of months back, in which we conducted 3 webinars till now. This is our fourth one. In our first accelerator-based webinar, we covered why an accelerator-based platform is required and how it helps a business. Some benefit would be faster go-to-market time, cost reduction, better player satisfaction from the get-go, from the start of the business, and etc. And in our second webinar, what we have spoken about is how a dashboard can help. Rahul, can you please move to the next slide? In our second webinar, we spoke about how dashboards help an iGaming business and why a good dashboard is a necessity for a business. So we also discussed our approach to, developing comprehensive dashboards, which would make sure the businesses gets insight at all level of the organization, right from the strategic to day-to-day operational as well. And in our last webinar, we discussed first few analytics use cases from our accelerator, which basically helps you using which you can optimize your marketing cost efficiently. And all of these webinars are available on demand on our website. I would encourage you to check these webinars out as well, as it will add some value to your existing knowledge. So coming to our host for today, Mr. Rahul Jain. So he is also head of delivery for Bizacuity, and he works directly with one of our biggest client, GVC. It is one of the biggest iGaming companies in the world. He brings in 15 plus years of experience in data management, BI, analytics in iGaming arena. And so Rahul, over to you. Please take us through this webinar today.
Thank you, Sumit. Good morning, everyone. I'm Rahul Jain. And first of all, with the COVID-19 epidemic spread across the world and the North America continent being particularly impacted, I wish all of you and your family and your businesses good health. So like Sumit said, I have a little more than 15 years of experience, and 90% of that experience has been in businesses related to iGaming, online gaming. I've been one of the members of the founding BI team in Party Gaming, which then went on to become Bwin Party. Across my journey, I've been fortunate enough to be one of the important stakeholders in a lot of data warehouse migration projects, because I was one of the members when Party Gaming merged with Bwin, forming Bwin Party. So the whole data warehouse migration, I was one of the key stakeholders there. When after joining Bizacuity, I've been an important stakeholder in the merger of the data warehouse of Ladbrokes with the one with Gala Coral, and which subsequently now Ladbrokes Coral being acquired by GVC. I'm again one of the stakeholders in the migration of the data warehouse from Ladbrokes Coral to GVC. Now, having worked on all these iGaming companies and with so many mergers and acquisitions, this has helped me explore so many different areas of the data pipeline, so many different sources, data sources, the different BI and ETL and analytics tools, various data dynamics. I can just say, well, that I've been fortunate enough, and it is with that background that I of late have started focusing uh, quite strongly on the analytics piece, where we are focusing on bringing up a product which is primarily analytics focused. With that brief introduction of myself and my experience, I will introduce all of you to lifetime value. Before that, I'll just set a context on the importance of the accelerator platform in terms of data analytics. One of the reports from Harvard Business Reviews has focused on the important things in data analytics from a business perspective. So as you can see, it's the ease of use, the accessibility, speed, repeatability and scalability, of course, always. But the speed and the ease of use are two things which tend to get neglected generally, because analytics projects are not projects which turn around very quickly. And when we are looking at advanced analytics, where we are looking at predictive models with good accuracy, understanding the data, deciding which algorithm is the best, having data scientists onboarded, all of this is a fairly time-consuming process. So the turnaround of analytics projects is generally a bit longer, and that's why I'm just focusing on speed, because a platform like Accelerator is focused or dedicated towards addressing the speed aspect and the ease of use aspects specifically, amongst others. And like Sumit said, in today's presentation, the webinar, I'm going to cover two important predictive analytics use cases. First is the lifetime value, and the second is the cross-sell recommendation engine. A lot of us have heard of lifetime value, but what exactly is lifetime value? What are its specific use cases? How do I calculate the lifetime value? What are the operational impediments coming in across? These are the things which we shall discuss in detail. And cross-sell recommendation engine, while cross-selling a product is important, knowing the most appropriate product to cross-sell to a specific customer is very good, and that helps in targeted campaigning. So we'll just discuss a cross-sell recommendation engine model as well. What is lifetime value? Now, like I said, a lot of us would probably have heard of lifetime value, or a few of us would even have a basic understanding of lifetime value. But it's important to understand the deeper meaning of lifetime value and why businesses should focus on lifetime value. Now, in very generic terms, or for a general business, lifetime value is a prediction of the net profit that can be attributed to a future relationship of the customer. So in other words, it's the monetary value, essentially, of a customer relationship based on what we project the future cash flows could be. The idea is for firms and businesses to focus or shift their focus from monthly targets or monthly or quarterly profits to a longer term health of their customer relationship. Once you start understanding the lifetime value of customers, you start focusing that in the longer run, this is what worth this customer is going to be for the business. So you segment the customers accordingly, you engage with the customers accordingly, and then you decide which are the sources of acquisitions which are helping me get these kind of customers. So that's the use case of, that's why firms should value lifetime value. From an acquisition perspective also, it's a very important metric, because you now know, once you have an understanding of lifetime value, that what is the upper limit that I can spend to acquire new customers from this particular source of acquisition, because you have an idea of which is the source of acquisition fetching you higher lifetime value customers. Most of us know that it's a lot more easier to retain an existing customer compared to acquiring a new customer. Not just easier, but even cheaper. It said, that retention is a lot cheaper than acquisition. The cost differential is almost 1/5. So if you're spending 1 rupee to retain an existing customer, you would spend 5 rupees to onboard a new customer. There's also if you have a new product or a new service, you have to pitch it to an existing client, existing customer versus an old customer, or sorry, versus a new customer. There's a 5% to 20% probability that you will eventually sell your product or service to the new customer. But if the same product or service is pitched to an existing customer, the probability shoots up to 60% to 70%. That's why it's very important to focus on the existing customers, have an estimate of what they are going to mean to you in terms of value in the longer term. How do we calculate the LTV? And the LTV is essentially in dollars. So now the calculation of LTV in the initial days would be, based on a crude heuristic, based on your understanding of the past data. However, over the period of time, it has evolved into predictive analytics. The traditional approach initially would be to predict customer lifetime value as a general average. For example, even in the telecom industry, even today, generic average is defined in terms of the average revenue per user, ARPU, wherein the ARPU is total revenue divided by number of users. So this is basically a representative of the traditional approach to lifetime value calculation. A similar approach was used even by Amazon in 2013. In 2013, Amazon estimated, after having some research dug into the lifetime value, that Prime customers would spend approximately $1,350 per year on Amazon. Compared to this, non-Prime customers would spend just half of it, about approximately $650 per year. Using this LTV as the input, Amazon started a two-pronged approach. One is to focus on the Prime customers and increase their value further. To try and migrate as many customers away from being non-Prime customers to Prime customers. And based on this metric, the way Amazon moved ahead, everybody knows. Now, this lifetime value that I am talking of is at a macro level or at a gross business level. Ideally, we would not only want to know what is the lifetime value, we would also want to influence it. If we know that the lifetime value of a particular segment of customers is low, I would look at the possibility of influencing it to move few of these customers to a middle value segment. Hence, lifetime value should, or rather is, typically defined and estimated at an individual customer level, which can again be aggregated at a specific segment level. So once that is done, once we have an understanding of what lifetime value really means, now what are the benefits? First is, because we know our customers well, we can have well-targeted campaigns. So we have very customer-specific, customer-focused campaigns, wherein, for example, high segment, high LTV segment customers are given campaigns which are specifically dedicated for VIPs, etc. Second, based on their lifetime value, we get an idea of the brand loyalty. Obviously, the customers with high lifetime value, high predicted lifetime value, are the ones who have a strong brand loyalty towards us. So we should again influence the other customers who don't have a great brand loyalty to move further up the ladder in terms of brand loyalty. Next is it helps us increase customer retention because we are now targeting customers with personalized campaigns. We are trying to influence brand loyalty. The eventual outcome would also be that the customers would stay with us. A lot of variables that are used for predicting the churn probability of customer are also used in calculating their lifetime value. So I can say that the churn prediction is also an input into the lifetime value. Like I said earlier, so because we have an idea of the sources of acquisition from where we get customers of a higher lifetime value, we ultimately end up having a much better acquisition strategy. And a culmination of all these points is automatically that it helps us increase revenue, not only directly as an outcome of the above four, but also because now you offer campaigns and bonuses accordingly. So your reinvestment in customers is very optimal. So you reinvest more in valuable customers, and you try and control your reinvestments in those customers who are known to be yielding either a very low or negative lifetime value, or who could be clearly identified to be bonus abusers. Now, this is lifetime value. Now, when we come to iGaming, or even this applies even to land-based casinos, how is lifetime value very specifically defined for them? Now, for iGaming, the idea of building an LTV model, or which I will call as like LTV now, lifetime value model, is to predict the future lifetime net gaming revenue that a customer is projected to generate. Now, what is net gaming revenue, which I will henceforth call NGR, is so gross gaming revenue is the direct accrual of revenue to the company, to the business, from a client's direct action. For example, if it's a poker business, the rate collected is the direct gross revenue for the product. If it's a casino, the amount staked by the customer minus the amount won by the customer, that's the gross revenue. However, we would run a lot of campaigns specific to the customer. So these campaigns are eventually money, they're dollars. Then we also have loyalty points and few other such costs. So we try and deduct these costs from the gross revenue and arrive at net gaming revenue. So when coming to lifetime value, we try to predict the NGR of a future defined period. The challenge is to assess the lifetime of a customer and their engagement. Now, their engagement could be influenced by external factors as well as internal factors. But what exactly would you define as lifetime for the customer? If a business has a good indication that a customer will have low, medium, or high lifetime NGR, it will give us a lot of value to many aspects around the business. Some of those specific aspects are one, for acquisition. One, not only do we know the sources of acquisition from where we get customers with a higher LTV, but also every month a lot of us pay a lot of commissions, affiliate commissions for redirecting traffic to our sites, to getting us new customers. Now we have monthly payment schedules defined. So once you have LTV projection, you can define your affiliate payment commissions schedule accordingly. So one. Then coming to finance. Now finance helps, for finance, LTV helps build forecasting, because as I said, we are trying to predict a future NGR. NGR is a direct input into net profit. So the future forecasting of revenue is done using a lifetime value prediction. Coming to marketing, that's possibly one function where lifetime value has huge number of applications. In a nutshell, if I have to say, the whole marketing mix modeling could be driven primarily by lifetime value. Not only could campaigns be segmented, campaigns be targeted at a specific segment, but also, for example, if you clearly identify a set of high value customers to be in a VIP segment, you can assign a specific VIP manager for that segment, and lots such actions can be taken up. So before we proceed, now I will get into details of how exactly have we defined our lifetime value prediction model. Before that, I have a question for the audience. I've been speaking of lifetime value, but what exactly is lifetime value for an iGaming customer when we are building a model? It's definitely not the entire lifespan, because for example, let's say if in the USA the lifespan of an individual average American person is kind of 85 years, but we would not try to risk that trying to project a revenue for the rest of his life. So the question for the audience is, what would you think should be the value for lifetime in terms of years? Options are, option A is 1 to 2 years, option B 5 to 7 years, option C 11 to 13 years, option D 15 to 20 years. So I'll just repeat. Option A, 1 to 2 years. B, 5 to 7 years. C, 11 to 13 years. D, 15 to 20 years. What I would encourage you all is, if anybody either knows based on their experience what it should ideally be, or if anybody wants to take a shot at guessing, please key in your answer in the Q&A section there. So in the Q&A section, if you can just type in your answer, Sumit will possibly, towards the later half of this webinar, he may actually tell if there were few of you who could actually get it right.
Sure.
Yeah. So now I will take you to a demo of our accelerator platform on which we will build a player LTV model. So if you give me a moment, let me just open my application. Sumit, I hope you are able to view my screen.
Yes, Rahul, we are able to see this. Yes.
Great. So this is the accelerator platform on which I'll just log in with the demo user for now. So for users who've been attending our earlier webinars, I would like to tell or keep you informed that as the product is evolving, we have kind of revamped the entire user interface and the flow of the platform. We've added a lot more analytical models into this. We've integrated a lot more dashboards into this. So for example, like you can see here, I just built up a few models for a demo purpose. So here we have a churn model and LTV model. And you can see who is the owner, as in the owner here would be the person who had created this model. When was this model created? As you can see, I just created each of these yesterday. The number of players on which a test prediction was run, the accuracy in terms of percentage, and AUC and RMSE. So if the problem being addressed is of a classification type, then you would have an AUC, which is the area under curve. And if it's a regression type, then we would have an RMSE, which is the root mean square error. Coming to lifetime value, this is a regression problem in terms of statistics, because we are defining or we are trying to predict LTV at a customer level. So now I will go ahead and create a new model. So I will create a new model. Create an LTV model. So now this is the UI for us to upload the data set, the raw data here at a transaction level, so that the data can then be enriched and then passed on to the statistical model. There's one guideline here which says that data should be uploaded at least for the 6 months active player base for best results. Otherwise, the machine learning model would not get the needed inputs. Now there are 6 files which are expected, but there are 3 files which are mandatory for you to upload. One is the customer attributes, next is the gaming transactions and non-gaming transactions. Now, customer attributes, what are the fields that I need to have in this file? You get this when you hover over the download samples file. Just in case, if this is not very clear to you, you can always just download a file. So for example, I will download a gaming transactions file and quickly refer to it to see what is the format of this file and what are the transactions in this. So now this is a gaming transaction sample file which has the gaming transaction ID, customer ID, timestamp, whether the transaction was complete, the channel, whether it's a desktop, mobile. If you can have further granular level data as to what was the type of device, if it's an iOS versus Android, within iOS what is the version, all of that, the more granular the data, the better it will be for prediction. Then the bet amount, win amount, rake if it is poker. This is for the gaming transactions. And then we have non-gaming transactions. Non-gaming transactions. So here we will have transactions like the deposits made by a customer, withdrawals made, bonuses offered, bonuses claimed, free spins offered, all of these kind of transactions, along with a debit credit indicator, whether it's a plus towards the customer or plus towards the business. So having downloaded these sample files, what I'll do is I'll upload 3 of these files. So what I've done is I've prepared a small data set for about 500 customers. So I'll just upload those 500 customers. For those 500 customers, I have generated a lot of gaming transactions and automatically a lot of non-gaming transactions as well. So I'll submit this. So the upload is in process. So first, these files get uploaded to the server. Once they upload it to the server, a data ingestion process is triggered, then a data enrichment process is triggered, and then eventually leading to the feature engineering. When I say data ingestion, this data is moved into a staging layer, and a quick validation is performed to confirm that the data that has come via your file and the data that has been entered into the staging layer, is it the same or not? So for that, the platform gives you a quick summary once the ingestion has completed for you to just get an idea whether the upload process has gone on successfully or not. So as you can see, the summary page has just come up. So as we can see, custom attributes, yes, 500 rows. So gaming transactions, they're close to 750,000 gaming transactions and about 37,000 non-gaming transactions. It also highlights you the number of columns and whether negative values, any columns with negative values are there. If there are any specific columns where the number of columns where there are too many missing values, those will be highlighted here. Alongside, we also highlight the columns which have a mixed data type. These are the specific columns where there's both a numeric as well as a string. So as we see, this is still processing. Normally this process, the entire end-to-end process would possibly take hours together. If you are uploading customers, let's say about 100,000 customers, I would expect it to take at least 6 hours or something for the model to train. That's the bare minimum I'm talking of. And hence I prepared data set only for 500 customers. So I'm hoping that it should complete before we complete the webinar. So we'll leave this here and I will quickly take you through what is exactly happening now when I say data enrichment. So on the left side are the fields that you have uploaded in the file, the customer attributes, the gaming transactions, and the non-gaming transactions. Now these are converted into a bigger set of derived attributes, derived metrics. At the moment, we have a set of a little over 80 such derived attributes. The idea is that for every problem, be it a classification problem or a regression problem, there are some specific variables which are considered as significant variables and key predictors of the customer behavior. However, this vary from business to business, customer to customer, demography to demography. So one difficulty that we would encounter here is, for example, if a person if a data scientist had developed a similar model for a client, let's say who's based in the UK, he would have an idea of the significant variables which are good predictors of customer behavior for UK customers. So if he's going to implement a similar algorithm for a US-based iGaming business, these predictors could be different because definitely the US customer behavior would be substantially different from the typical UK customer behavior. So what we have done is we've worked with clients across the world, primarily from most of them from Europe and the US of A. So based on our experience with various clients dealing in various product verticals as well as different geographies, we've tried to cover as many derivative metrics as possible and built up this data enrichment layer in which we convert the raw data that you uploaded into these set of 80 plus variables. So once this is done, these more than 80 variables are then passed on to the next layer, which is the feature engineering, where the actual statistics part of the data engineering is done. Now that the data has been prepared, the first thing is a lot of data processing takes place, because you have the data, there could be a lot of gaps in the data, there could be a lot of numerical values which could be missing, there could be outliers in your numerical values. So the outlier treatment, specific treatment for missing values is done here. For example, if there are numeric fields where there are a lot of nulls or a lot of zeros, they would end up causing a lot of bias in the statistical model. So what we do here is we try to replace these nulls or missing values with a median value. So 0 is not essentially replaced with the median value, because 0 is considered as a valid data. But if it's a null or if it's a purely a missing value, that is replaced with the median value. Outliers are treated separately. And if there are categorical values, for example, the state, so there could be a lot of cases where the state of the customer is not defined. So in such cases, we build up a separate basket for handling customers who do not specify their state while registering with us. So based on this, a lot of data treatment goes through, and a lot of machine learning statistical algorithms are called in. This on the screen is a non-exhaustive list of a few of these algorithms. The AdaBoost, tagging classifier, or a standard regression model, XGBoost, random forest. So once these are run through, the top 3 models with the highest level of accuracy are chosen. And on top of them, we apply a lot of hyperparameter tuning. We change the tree depth, and eventually out of these 3, we choose one where the accuracy, as in the difference between accuracy for training data versus test data, is minimal. The idea is to ensure that any overfitting problem or underfitting problem is addressed at the model selection time itself. Once this is done, the eventual output of the model would be just the user ID, 180-day LTV, 360-day LTV, and the segment. So coming back to the question that I had asked, so the lifetime value for a customer. So as you can see here, I'm trying to predict the lifetime value at a 180-day level or a 360-day level, or in some cases this could even be 2 years level. But for lifetime value prediction, it is recommended ideally not to go beyond that. So if anybody had given an answer wherein you had said that the lifetime value should be between 1 to 2 years, yes, you're bang on. That is how the lifetime value should be. However, that's not again a fixed answer, because it also depends on how old your business is, how heterogeneous or homogeneous your customer base is, what are the geographies in which your customers reside, and how long a history of data that you are able to feed into the model. But as a standard, generally a 1 year is an ideal recommendation for LTV. So now I'll just go back to here to the model. So as you can see here, it's giving me a warning which says more than 30% missing values in all variables. Because like I said, I created this data set. So I've left a lot of nulls. So in this case, it'll only throw me a warning. The algorithm doesn't stop. It'll still process. Like I said, it will fill in this with the median value and continue with the processing. So I'll click this OK, and the model will still go further. I'm sorry. So now the data enrichment is done, and the model is in its analytics phase. So while this will take some time, I can just take you through what exactly happens. So I built up a similar model last night and tried to make some predictions. So if I choose this, which I just created yesterday, this will how be the outcome of the model. So this is the model which I created yesterday. The model is LTV. The model was trained on 400 players. So I had actually again given an input of 500 players, and the way the models have been configured are that while training, it divides itself into an 80-20 ratio. So 80% of the customer base is taken for training the model, and remaining 20% base of the customers is taken as a testing value. So model gets trained on 400 players and it makes predictions for the next 100 players and tries to see how accurate were those predictions. So in this case, these are the LTV value segments, 0, 1, 2. The ones in orange are the predicted values versus blue ones are the actual values. As you can see, the accuracy, at least to the training data, is fairly very high. 87% is like very high. But the accuracy for the test data is very low because hardly 100 rows, and there's no learning for the model here. It's only 400 players. Then to get an idea of how much is the difference or error between actual versus predicted at an individual customer level, we try to plot an error distribution graph. So in this case, for example, there are about 120 customers for whom the difference between actual and predicted NGR for the next 360 days was just about 0. Another set of about 120 to 150 customers, the difference, projected difference between lifetime value predicted versus actual is just around 10,000. So this broadly tells me that because it is centered towards zero, this is broadly closer to a normal curve. In case we would want to track it further at a segment level, again, we have a segment-wise error distribution plot where we can just get a quick insight as to how well is my is the difference across segments defined. So as you can see in this case, in segment 0, the plotting is primarily again centered towards 0. It gives a clear idea that this is a fairly normal graph. Same with segment 1 and same with segment 2. So this is for the, on the left hand side, this is for the training data, and on the right side, it's for the test data. Now for this, this is what happened when I first created the model and trained it. So tomorrow, when we would want to have somebody work on this to upload a new set of data and make future predictions for such players, the training is now over. So anything now will basically predict based on the training. So we can just click on the predict button here, either here, or there's another option. Or you can even go here, select this model, action, and predict. So just takes us to this page again, where we have to upload again the customer attributes, the gaming and the non-gaming transactions. Within the limits of time, what we'll do is we'll skip this. We will not actually try and predict for a new set. So I'll just go back, and instead we'll see what were the predictions for a new customer set when I try to predict this yesterday, which is here. So here you have two options. Either you can click on this link to directly see the results within this web page, or you can directly click on the download link wherein the output will be downloaded in an Excel format. So let's first see here. So if I see it here, this is summary that this was on total of 500 players, and this is how the error distribution is across the players based on the value segment on NGR. And for each at a customer level, what is the LTV prediction across 180 days and 360 days? So I can just download it here, and we get the list. So if you want to share this list with the CRM teams or with any other teams, you can just download the file and send it by Excel or any of your tools. Oh, great. So the model, as you see, has completed. The analytics phase has completed, which is great. So in about, because it's a very small set of players, it would complete well within time. So I click on next and I get this as a result. So webinar demo 1, demo 4, this is the one which I just created for 400 players, trained on 400 players, and the next 100 players are used for testing. And these are the error distribution. And as you can see, accuracy is not high here because it's hardly 100 players. As the number of players in your training data set increases, the accuracy of this model increases substantially. We've seen a few of the models, a few of the data sets getting accuracy as high as 85% because the amount of customers that were uploaded was running into a few hundred thousands, in one case, more than a million. So in such cases, the accuracy shoots up substantially. So one concluding note on this is, I'm so sorry. So the concluding note is this: why do we go for this? So once you have a clear idea of lifetime value, business can make decisions accordingly, a lot of decisions, and treat customers accordingly so that we build a long-term relationship organically with our customer base. So with this, I conclude my webinar on the lifetime value.
Thank you, Rahul. So this is Sumit again. So now Rahul will take you through our next use case, which is cross-sell recommendation engine. However, before we move there, I would request all our attendees to go into the Q&A section, and please, ask any of your questions which you have till now. And towards the end of the webinar, we will take those questions. So please feel free to go into the Q&A section and please ask those questions. Thank you. Rahul, you can go through the other use case on cross-sell.
Yeah. Thank you, Sumit.
Okay. Yes.
You're able to view my screen, Sumit?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. So the next use case or the predictive model that we will be discussing now is a cross-sell recommendation engine. The cross-sell recommendation engine is, well, most of us know what is a cross-sell. When a customer is coming to buy a particular product or service, we also try and offer another product or service. But why should we go for a recommendation engine for this? The idea is to go for personalized targeting. There used to be a time when a particular product which is doing well would be cross-sold to all the customers across the band so that to try and encourage all other customers to try that product or service. However, with advancing technologies, with advancing AI and machine learning, we started getting much more deeper insights into customer behavior and started thinking of how about making personalized recommendations. So what are the benefits of such personalized cross-sell recommendation? One is the personalized campaign, because, for example, if I know that a Caribbean slot runs very well for customers from a certain geography, but a slot of a theme, let's say 007, does not work for such geography, we can personalize it accordingly. So the moment a customer sees a personalized campaign, the chance that he'll opt in for it is high. Second is to also increase the player value. So a player who, for example, plays one game today, he plays a casino slot, and there's a good chance that over a period of time, a year or two later, he would also try and play blackjack. But if we can cross-sell blackjack much early in his life cycle, in his journey, we are maximizing the player value upfront. So these are two specific benefits amongst a lot of others for having a recommendation engine. Now, this recommendation engine, if it sounds too nerdy, let me tell you, we come across a recommendation engine in our day-to-day life every day. All of us switch on the TV and open Netflix, open Amazon Prime. So based on the movie that you would have seen yesterday, based on the series that you would have seen yesterday, it gives you a set of movies or series that you must be watching next. Our recommended features, and personalized for you. These are the things that we see. So that's nothing but a cross-sell recommendation engine. If you book a flight today, a flight from New York to California, well, this is not the right time for me to speak about flying. Thanks to COVID, everybody's home locked, but sorry, but I'll just use that example. So if you're flying from New York to California, the moment you book the flight, you'll see that several advertisements splattered all over your screen saying, go for this hotel, go for this tourist agency, etc. So all these are classical cases of cross-sell. Now, how about having this level of cross-sell in an online casino or online sports betting? So that's the idea of the cross-sell recommendation engine. The approach. when I say approach, I will not demo this on the accelerator platform in the interest of time, but the files that you would have uploaded for the lifetime value prediction, the same files will be needed even for the cross-sell recommendation engine. Once you uploaded these files, the customer behavior is understood based on a market basket analysis. So here we divide the customers into two different segments. One is customers who are new. When I say new, these are customers who have registered with us in recent time and have generated just less than 10 active playing days for the business. And then there are the existing customers who have registered with us and have generated at least more than 10 playing days for the business. So the treatment for each of these is different. For new customers, we do a demography and content-based filtering. What is it? The attributes based on a demography are used primarily to cross-sell to a customer when a customer is new in their journey. For example, if you have a customer who we know is from the US, irrespective of any other thing, if I have to sell a sports product, a sports betting product to such a customer, I would upfront offer a baseball or an NBA game. If on the other hand, if I had a customer from the United Kingdom, I would probably offer a soccer match of the English Premier League. So this is for new customers wherein their geography and other demographic variables like their age, gender, state, etc. would also be considered. So this is the content-based filtering. Now, coming to existing customers, not only do we understand their demography, but also we have a history of their transactions. So based on a mixture of demography plus history of their transactions, we predict their next affinity-based product. So that's collaborative filtering. So the product affinity scores are given. In this case, we try to give two products. So we have, as an outcome, we give a primary cross-sell recommendation and a secondary cross-sell recommendation. So we give product affinity scores 1, product affinity score 2. So for example, product affinity score 1 could be a Mission Impossible themed slot, and product affinity score 2 would be a blackjack game. So the customer is then cross-sold MI Mission Impossible theme-based slot. And at a later point in time, when the customer has actually started playing more of the MI themed casino slots, the next cross-sell of the blackjack is offered. So this is how this is done. At a technical implementation level, this involves, as in when I say a statistical model, it doesn't really involve a statistical model like the one which we did for lifetime value. But here we have put the data into a graph DB, and so the engine basically tries to connect all the dots, build up a lot of permutations and combinations, and come out with the recommendations. What is the outcome? One is, like I said, cross-selling at a personalized level. So what happens over a period of time, the customers start depending on what you are cross-selling rather than trying to explore the product catalog. For example, I don't know about others, but I was kind of not caught up with a lot of Oscar movies. But the moment I saw 3 Oscar movies back to back, Amazon replaced my recommended list with a list of only Oscar-nominated movies. And after that, I stopped exploring any of the other movies and just finished the Oscar movies. So that's the kind of hyper-personalization that we are talking of. And so long as it doesn't get too in your face, it contributes to a very positive customer journey. Next one is a relevant cross-selling. For example, if we are just going for a blanket cross-selling, let's say just sell, let's cross-sell a poker Texas Hold'em game across all the customers. So the customers would just use it as a bonus, spend it and forget it. Instead, if we give them a cross-sell bonus in a way that that customer could possibly start playing this game more in future, will help us optimize the value on that customer. And we are also simplifying the marketing process because we are targeting customers based on what their preferences are. So this is the outcome of the cross-sell recommendation engine. So with this, I conclude my webinar on the cross-sell recommendation engine as well.
Thank you, Rahul. So now, attendees, we will take the questions. So I can see there is a lot of excitement for our webinar, and there are a lot of questions which you have been asking. So we'll try and take as many questions as we can. Let's start with the first question. So Rahul, the first question goes as we are relatively new iGaming company, and we do have some of these analytics use cases. How do you think your LTV model can make a difference for us?
Okay. Well, so even if it's a new iGaming business, unless it's too new, wherein you've just been 2 or 3 months into business. If you've just been 2 or 3 months into the business, I would say don't invest into lifetime value model right now. But if you're at least let's say at least 6 months into your business, then lifetime value model and a few other models definitely help. Now, how will it help? First is, if you are going to initiate an analytics practice on your own, an in-house practice, you are talking of a massive investment, a massive budget approval, and a huge commitment and investment in terms of both time and money. So you'll have to first hire a set of data engineers, data scientists, get them understand your data. They need not necessarily be from the field of iGaming. They understand your data, and and if a business is also approving a budget for analytics, the first model that they would expect is try and predict customer churn. So even if you're building a simple churn prediction model, you're talking of the first output that you would see is at least at the earliest 3 or 4 months down the line, possibly even more, and not sure if the accuracy would be great. And after seeing the value on the customer prediction model, would your business approve further investments into a lifetime value model development? So instead of that, if you have a ready-made lifetime value model, which you can start using right tomorrow, so the whole onboarding process is a lot more smoother. The value can be seen a lot more earlier in your journey, and you save a lot of time and money. That's the first point. On top of it, in addition to the finance and acquisition aspect that I already covered in detail while in the webinar, your marketing teams already who do not have great insights into your customer will start getting early insights into your customer, and they start focusing on the high value customers upfront rather than waiting for your business to evolve into 2 years or 3 years old business, and that is when you start figuring out. You clear have a early prediction of what your customers are going to value to you within the next 12 months. So the targeting could be a lot more effective. And for finance team, because you're early in your business, your finance team may not have the necessary tools and techniques to make projection forecasts. So NGR would definitely help the forecast. And sorry to, I don't know if the answer is getting a little longer, but I would just link this back to the page that I presented on the HBR report, which I will just present on my screen again. So this HBR report focuses that speed is very important, and which kind of businesses do not focus heavily on this. So this speed aspect of this is very specifically and pinpointedly addressed by the accelerator platform. So I think that should answer your question.
Yeah, thanks, Rahul. Thanks for the answer. We will quickly take the next question. So the next question goes like, while explaining player lifetime value, you mentioned a term like net gaming revenue. Can you tell us what all costs can be deducted to arrive at this metric, because it seems to be a financial term?
Okay, great. First of all, apologies if I made it sound like a financial term. But the idea is, I would say it's more, it's a semi-financial and a semi-analytical term. This helps you understand how close to finance analytics is. So gross gaming revenue, I assume you would have understood that that's what the players gross give to the businesses, or that's what at a gross level the business gets from the customer, from the player. For example, for poker, like I said, it's just the rake amount. And for casino, it's the difference between the staked amount and what the customer wins. Now, on top of it, the bonuses that we've offered to clients, to the players, these need to be deducted because ultimately these are costs to the business. They are like free spins, free bets. These are actually costs to the business. This would have accrued to the business had we not offered a bonus and the customer would have put from his own pocket. So these kind of costs need to be deducted. So that's the bonuses. On top of it, most of the iGaming businesses have the system of loyalty-based points, wherein you define some milestones. The moment the player hits those milestones, X number of points accumulate to their account. Then these points can then be converted into a free roll or a gaming bonus, or in some cases a merchandise thing. So this is ultimately a cost to the business, which eventually the finance team would anyways have deducted. So you are helping finance team deduct that upfront at a gaming level. Then even a tax amount, tax liabilities. So for example, in most of the regulated gaming regimes, like the US and the whole of Western Europe, the tax laws are fairly detailed and clear. And for example, for the US, it's certain that it could be defined like 5% of the rake amount is to be given as tax to the government. A point of consumption based tax, irrespective of whether it could be online business, but the whole fact that the point of consumption is California, the tax should accrue to California. So if we know these government laws, we can actually put it into the system and calculate the tax liability and deduct it from the gaming revenue of the client. So eventually we are coming to a net gaming revenue from which the finance team needs to just deduct other administrative expenses and other business running expenses. So I hope that addresses the question. So, but I'll still give a quick summary of that definition once again. The net gaming revenue will be gross gaming revenue minus or deduct from that the cost of bonuses, the cost of loyalty points, and any other tax liability.
Yeah. Thanks, Rahul. Thanks for the answer. And as I can see that we have actually, kind of running out of time. So as this is the last webinar, in our series of accelerator-based webinars, so I would like to conclude this. So thank you, Rahul, again for taking us through the webinar and the Q&A session. And I can see that there are still not many questions which we are not able to answer. And what we are going to do is we are going to answer those questions one-on-one while we are sending out email to you, one email, including this recording of this particular webinar. And before we finish our today's webinar, I will conclude this by providing some details on the different kind of services we provide to our customers. Apart from the SaaS-based solution, which we just showcased you, we also provide custom solution based on our client requirement. Our services include management consulting, data management, ETL services, data warehousing services, and data integration services. So these comes under the data management services overall. And apart from this, we also provide custom analytics. So let's say some of the analytics use cases, which is not covered in our accelerator, and you want us to take a look at it, we can come and take a look at it and prepare that for you as well. We also do custom BI. So we have already deployed almost close to 20 plus end-to-end custom BI solution for many iGaming customers. And we do provide support services as well after we have put through these deployments. And as a vendor for online gaming industry, we also see that there's a lot of focus on cost and cash flow preservation for business continuity, especially in this COVID-19 situation. And if you need any help or a discussion on how to save cost or optimize your current IT environment, we are always open to a one-to-one discussion. And we will share, both of our email IDs, mine and Rahul's, in the email with the recording of this particular webinar, so that you can reach out to us directly for any interaction if you seems necessary. And we will also share the link to our other on-demand webinars, which I was talking about in the beginning, which covered the dashboard part and the initial, 2-3 part of couple of use cases in our accelerator. Again, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you. Thank you for making this webinar series such a huge success. We hope that this webinar series has added some value to you and your respective organizations. As I can see that there has been a lot of demand, and there is been a lot of excitement through our for all of our webinars in the past couple of months. So thanks a lot. Have a great day.